Alright everybody, welcome to the first ever Power Rankings video. This is an idea I blatantly stole off of Skylar, but it sounds like a pretty good idea, so we're going to give it a shot. We'll have a vote at the end of the poll. You guys can decide if you want me to keep doing videos or if you want me to do text. Now, I didn't really want to do this by myself. Colin was supposed to do it with me, but dude's a fucking idiot, so here I am doing it by myself. So, let's start this off with my number 10. And that would be Skylar Eckenrode. Mainly because he has Calvin Johnson and Matthew Stafford, who are really a bunch of faggots for scoring, I don't know, 59 or some shit points to beat me on Sunday Night Football. God, I fucking hate you. But in all reality, his team's pretty good. So we're going to go now for the real rankings. At number 10, we have someone who really, he spent all last year here. It was not fun. He didn't enjoy it, but after a really pathetic week 1, we don't have a choice. So, number 10, we have Justin Bowser. Well, his team didn't really play that bad. I mean, he had a decent points for. Okay, not really. It was awful at 61. His wide receivers scored a whopping 4 points combined. I mean, I've never seen something quite as bad as that. And he just belongs at number 10, not to mention Jordan Cameron getting hurt after catching one ball. At least Nick Foles kind of came through for him, but it was not a pretty sight at all. And that's why he belongs at number 10, once again, just like last year. And let's not forget the fact that his flex position at Doug Martin scored 0 points. He had 9 carries for 9 yards. That's just awful. Just poor Justin. Alright, at number 9, we have Jeff Davis. Now, I almost feel bad for Jeff. I mean, he found out about the league, I think, 10, 15 minutes before he had to draft. Came without any papers or anything to really know what he was supposed to be doing. And we expect him to draft a winning team. Now, Jamal Charles only scored 2 points in this matchup, which you have to imagine that's going to get better. And he probably would have been higher in the rankings if it wasn't for Jed's Julius Thomas going off for 3 touchdowns. Some highlights on his team is Brandon Marshall seems to definitely be the number 1 in Chicago. Jay Cutler does not like Alshon Jeffrey as much as Josh McCown did. Now, Deshaun Jackson looked a little bit worrisome. They didn't really throw the ball deep. Maybe that was due to bad lines and the Texans' defensive line with Clowney and J.J. Watt. That could get better, but we'll see. Now, one of my favorite players, Cordell Patterson, really came through for him. He had more rushing yards than AP. He looked fantastic. But Zach Stacy is a number 2 running back. I mean, that Rams team just looked awful. I mean, just awful. And I don't know what he's supposed to do. Cunningham's probably going to steal that job before you know it. Now, he did lose without Cam Newton. Now, is Derek Carr the best person to pick up in his replacement? I mean, probably not, but I guess we'll see. Maybe this week he'll play Darren Sproles, who, had more points than almost his entire starting lineup, with the exception of Cordell Patterson. But we'll see. He also picked up Eli Manning again. I just don't understand that one. Eli Manning's pretty awful. There's better QBs on the waiver wire, but whatever floats his boat. This team should get better, but I guess we'll wait and see. Let's just chalk it up to rust of not knowing about the league. Alright, at number 8, we got RJ with his matchup against, I don't remember who he played. Hold on, give me 1 second. Yeah, RJ against Conway. Now, Conway was my worst team in the power rankings. Obviously, won. It looks pretty good. What's more sad is that RJ lost to him, because no one should have to lose to Conway. That's just an embarrassing thing to have to do. Now, about his team. Ben Tate's out for 2 to 4 weeks. He could easily lose that starting job to Terrence West during those weeks. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised. I said about Alshon Jeffrey in Jeff's video about that it just seems like his love isn't there like it was with Josh McCown. Now, DeMarco Murray and Peyton Manning looked fantastic. Peyton Manning threw for 3 touchdowns, and hopefully the offensive coordinator doesn't go into a safe mode again in the second half, even when they're up by 21 or whatever. Stupid. DeMarco Murray looked real strong for an awful Dallas team that's going to have to run the ball because all Tony Romo can do is throw picks. What else? He's rolling with Steven Jackson, which is probably not the best call, considering there's only 1 touchdown by running. That's Jaquise Rogers. I mean, that shouldn't stay the way it is. Rodgers is awful. I had him a bunch of times last year. Not worth it. Probably should start playing Julian Edelman because it seems like that's the only person Tom Brady likes to throw the ball to. His bench is still pretty awful. Maybe we'll make some waiver wire claims. He has Devontae Adams on his bench, who scored 0 points for the Green Bay Packers. I don't even really know who that guy is. I usually know a lot about football. I don't know if this team's ever going to really get that much better. I don't really like it, with the exception of Peyton Manning. There's no depth at running back now that Tate's on. I don't like Pierre Thomas. I mean, LeGarrette Blount scored a touchdown, but Le'Veon Bell ran a lot better than I ever thought we'd see him run. This team could consistently end up at the bottom of my rankings. Alright, at number 7, we got Straight Cash Homie, or Travis Holby. He was my number 2 going into the season. I wonder if I maybe gave him too much credit. But, I mean, he's going to get Wes Walker back in a couple games. That should really help his wideouts, considering Keenan Allen put up 3 and Decker put up 7. It's not fantastic, but it's still better than Justin's wide receivers, so that's something. Alfred Morris looked pretty good. He was, I think 3 or 4 yards shy of 100 yards to give him over the hump. That would have been real nice for him. Eddie Lacy looked kind of rough, but it was against the Seattle Seahawks. I mean, you got to imagine that's going to be a bounce back. Now, Andrew Luck looked fantastic. I mean, with the exception of maybe Stafford and Peyton Manning, looked like the best QB last week. Giovanni Bernard didn't play as well as I think we'd like to see him play against the Ravens defense, which isn't really that great anymore. He didn't play necessarily great. 10 points. I mean, you'll take that out of your running back, but only 48 yards rushing. You got to see that number go up. Kyle Rudolph caught a touchdown. Still my favorite sleeper tight end. I think he scores a bunch of touchdowns this year. Maybe he'll play Michael Floyd this week, who looked really good with Carson Palmer. His bench is mediocre. I mean, he'll really need to pull out some wins to keep this up. I think this team has potential, but, I mean, come on, Travis. Get your shit together. We want a new name. You had that name last year. It's getting kind of annoying. I'm just going to make it something gay here soon. So, pick up the fucking pace. Alright, now for the fun times of our rankings, when we start really getting into some probably questionable calls that I make, but hey, what's power rankings without questionable calls? At number 6, I have my first team with a win. It's going to be Gresco. I know he's 1-0, which is better than me at 0-1, but the dude only scored, I don't know, I can't find it. The guy only had a points for of 74. I mean, if he would have played anyone except for the terrible Justin, he'd probably be 0-1. I mean, literally the only person he could also beat. Nope, that's literally the only person he could have beat. He doesn't deserve to be in the top 5 yet. Andre Ellington was hurt and still scored 5 points, so that should only get better. It's only a matter of time before Frank Gore gets replaced by Carlos Hyde. I mean, did you watch him run? Dude was freaking legit. Bishop Sankey got like 2 carries. I mean, he's 3rd on the depth chart, but yet Gresco decided he should start him week 1. I mean, whatever. That's his call. Demaryius Thomas dropped like 3 passes. I mean, that's obviously never going to happen again, which is really going to help his team. He's still got Jordy Nelson. I mean, I love Jordy Nelson. I think he's top 5 wide receiver this year, and now that he doesn't have to worry about the Seahawks defense, he's going to put up big numbers. Vincent Jackson looked kind of rough. Actually, Josh McCown looked a lot worse than I expected, and it kind of hurt Vincent Jackson. And, I mean, they played the Panthers, so you kind of got to give them an exception, but I don't know. I guess we'll see what happens. At QB, still got Drew Brees. I mean, obviously, you can't complain about Drew Brees. He's good there. Nick Novak is kicker. I know I probably shouldn't be talking about kickers, but Nick Novak's a fucking asshole for scoring 5 points, which made me lose in another league because I only needed him to score 4. So, fuck Nick Novak and the San Diego Chargers. Jordan Reed just got hurt, so that's probably going to hurt him in the long run. Not a big fan of Zach Ertz as a replacement. Well, I think he had 1 long touchdown, and that's why he had a good game. That's obviously not going to happen all the time. Nick Foles will get better, and that'll probably hurt Ertz more than it'll help him. So, I'm definitely okay with him being outside the top 5, despite being one of the 1-0 teams. Alright, so I recorded the rest of the rankings. For some reason, my webcam wasn't recording, so I got to do this all over again, which really just kind of pisses me off. Anyway, so number 5, I have myself. I'm the commissioner. I'll put myself wherever I want. It's really a beauty of being me. But in all reality, my team played pretty good. I had a high points for. I mean, I think barely anyone beat me in the points for category. I just had to play Skyler, who got really lucky on a Sunday night game, but whatever. Tom Brady looked awful, which is bad because he's my only backup QB, or I don't have a backup QB. I started Michael Crabtree over the rest of the guys on my bench, who all outscored him with the exception of Darren McFadden and Danny Amendola. I don't really know why I own them. I don't. For some reason, I feel like it's a good idea. I don't really trust Shane Vereen as my flex quite yet. We'll have to see if him and Brady get better. I mean, him and Ridley both ran like shit, whatever. But I got the most pimp guy in the league, and that's Blair Walsh, so obviously I'm going to win the championship. Alright, next up we got Conway, and he's been giving me shit all week about how, oh, I proved your power rankings wrong. It's ranked number 10, and now I won, and it's second highest points for. I don't give a shit, Conway. Yeah, you've moved up. You're now my number 4 team on the power rankings. Congratulations for you. Chris Johnson looked a lot better than I thought he would, so I'll give him that. I should technically have you ranked above Jed, who's my number 3, but I just don't want to because you were a cocky asshole. Marshawn Lynch looked fantastic. I mean, all these reports came out of preseason about how he was going to get replaced, how he wasn't going to run, and he's the number 1 running back in fantasy right now. That could work out. I still hate that you drafted 4 running backs for your first 4 picks. You started Torrey Smith, who got you 5 points. Can you imagine you would have had? I looked it up. You could have Pierre Garçon. You could have Randall Cobb. Who was the big one? Michael Floyd. I mean, there's just a lot of big names you could have at wide receiver, but you're stuck with Torrey Smith. And I don't know if you know this, but Joe Flacco sucks. Like, decently bad sucks, but whatever. Reggie Bush looked kind of rough. Joique Bell looked a lot better, and I figured that's probably going to happen all year. But I like Kaepernick. He looks strong, and the game shouldn't be as big as blowouts as the Dallas game was, so he'll actually be forced to throw the ball. I don't think Chris Johnson holds on to what he did, but I guess we'll see. And I kind of hope you lose just because you've been a dick about the power rankings. Alright, next up we got Jed, I don't even really like Jed's team. He's only number 3, like I said, because I hate Conway. He's a dick. But Chris Ivory scored a 77-yard touchdown. I mean, without that, he would have literally had 9 rushes for 30 yards. I mean, that's not the kind of guy you want to be starting, but it worked out for him, so I guess I can't give him too much shit. Julius Thomas won him his game, hands down. Those 3 touchdowns, over 100 yards. I mean, it's hard to beat somebody who gets 30 points from their goddamn tight end. CJ Spiller actually looked better than I think he did most of last year, but I mean, if it wasn't for the receiving touchdown, I guess he would only had 6 points, but still, it's a good sign that he's catching the ball. He has A-Rod and Matt Ryan. Talk about a fantastic combo of QBs. I mean, that's pretty. Des Bryant had 5 points. That number should go up. He got hurt. They were down. Tony Romo looked awful. I really like Pierre Garçon. I know he only had 70 yards, but he caught 10 balls. And as long as he's getting targeted that much in the game, that number's only going to go up. I think this team actually does have more potential than maybe I gave it before. Noshawn Moreno's 21 points on his bench was really surprising. I mean, I didn't think that guy was going to do shit this year. The more I look at Jed's team, the more it's actually a pretty decent team, and that kind of makes me sad. We already let him win 1 championship. We got to make sure he loses this year. I mean, that's really important. I do not want to see Jed's win $400, so let's prevent that. Alright, so next up at number 2, we have my least favorite person in the league right now, and that would be Skyler Eckenrode. Well, his team did play really well. Okay, actually, I mean, his team played pretty bad. He had Stafford, Le'Veon Bell, and Calvin Johnson, and it was enough to win. But, I mean, those guys played really good, and that number should only go up. I mean, those guys just looked fantastic. I mean, with the not double-covered Calvin, or triple-covered in Calvin Johnson because of Golden Tate, they just kept connecting after connecting. Le'Veon Bell looked a lot better than I ever expected. I thought he ran like shit last year. He just got goal line carries. And he kind of proved me wrong. He ran strong. Percy Harvin, Emmanuel Sanders, Calvin Johnson, T.Y. Hill, Marcus Colston, and Mike Wallace. I mean, he just has a nuts array of wide receivers. And that could easily glide him to either making a good trade to grab another running back to replace the Toby Gerhart, who looked awful. Or he could just ride those wide receivers out and probably keep winning games because one of them is going to blow up every week. And he's still got Calvin Benjamin on his bench. It's like no matter what this guy does, he always has another wide receiver. but I think he could probably hold out for Carlos Hyde to eventually take the starting job. And bam, he's got himself another strong running back. This doesn't change the fact that I absolutely hate Skyler, and I hope he loses the next 6 games. And then finally, for our number 1, we have Zach Luck. I mean, he stays here from last week. He won. The only person who scored more points with him was that douchebag Skyler. His team still looks fantastic. I mean, Jay Cutler looks like he's going to be a solid QB1. Matt Forte ran hard, and that connection, he gets points from both sides. Rashard Jennings was a little worrisome. I know he got a goal line carry to put him up to 15 points, but he just kind of kept getting carries out of excess. And if he keeps running that poorly, you could see Andre Williams get some carries. Antonio Brown looked fantastic. I mean, how many players do you know that can kung fu kick somebody in the middle of a game? I mean, that's pretty fantastic. Jimmy Graham was there again, and he surprisingly didn't catch a touchdown yet, which might be a first. I mean, week 1, Jimmy Graham hasn't a touchdown, but I mean, as long as Jimmy Graham's there, it's only going to go up. I like Joique Bell at the flex position. He ran good. Reggie Bush looked kind of mediocre. I mean, Joique Bell's definitely the person to own in Detroit. Kendall Wright on his bench is pretty great. I think that's going to work out for him really well. The rest of his bench is a little worrisome. I mean, Bernard Pierce obviously isn't going to win the starting job at Baltimore. If he does, I'll be really shocked. Andrew Hawkins looks like if Gordon doesn't get reinstated, he's probably going to be the main target. He had 10 catches, that many targets. Eventually, you're going to get into the ball. You're going to get into the end zone, and all you need is some yards in end zone, and you're going to be a top wide receiver. This team stays at number 1. I feel like it'll probably be at number 1 for a while. I mean, he could lose, but I think he's got his next week matchup wrapped up. Going against RJ, who obviously I put at number 9. So I think he'll be fine this week. And I think he deserves to be our number 1, and he's definitely the person who's on championship watch. Alright, boys and girls, well, that does it for the video power rankings. Obviously, I said I'm going to put that poll at the end so you can decide if you'd rather do this or if you'd rather do text. Next time I do these, if you decide you want another one, I'm going to try to get Conway here so we can do like a little co-host. Figured it'll help to have a second opinion. Plus, he's kind of a dick, so I figured he'll make fun of some people, and he might tell like maybe one good joke throughout the whole video. But that's better than nothing, right? Plus, I want to make him contribute in some way. So let me know what you guys think in the comments, and hope you enjoyed this week's power rankings.